Welcome back to the CHF Overtime Podcast for a very special episode of the CHF Overtime Podcast. My name is Jordan DeLuciano, as always, and joining me now are two very important figures within the Collegiate Hockey Federation. So with that being said, I'm first going to introduce the CHF chairman, Mark Perowitz. Mark, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you and introduce Scott. We're at a great time at the stage of our growth here in the CHF. We started 4 or 5 years ago now, and with a particular goal of ours is to put players first, and we've done that over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, and it's really started to make a difference. We've doubled in size over the last 2-3 years, to where we have over 125 university programs across 17 states, over 3,500 student athletes and coaches and referees. From nothing, from 3-4 years ago. And, it's been a great opportunity for us to help to redefine the world of, non-varsity collegiate ice hockey. For those folks out listening to this, there's a general misconception about the opportunity to play collegiate ice hockey. And the world of NCAA is only Division I and Division III, and between the two divisions, there's only about 150, 160 programs. That's really it. And as a result, less than 3% of all of the youth players and junior players out there will have an opportunity to play NCAA, Division I or Division III ice hockey. There's no Division II. Less than 1% play Division I. So, do the math, and that's 97% of all the available players out there are going to play collegiate hockey outside of the NCAA, and that's where an organization like ours comes in. When we started this with a goal of helping to raise the awareness not only of the opportunity to play collegiate hockey at a very high level, but do it as a student athlete. And we really believe that the combination of student athlete creates an opportunity, a set of experiences, and a set of life lessons. Given that 0.001% of all players get to play in professional hockey, this is about having fun. This is about generating excitement. This is about the guys getting together in 20 years and looking back on it and saying what a great experience they had. And that's what we're really focused on here. We've approached the development of the CHF like a startup. Startup typically grows in 3 phases. Our first phase was prove it, right? So proof of concept, and we ended the proof of concept phase with over 125 universities, right? Which is a great showing. Now we're into a growth stage, and we've gone from a structure of all hands on deck, a small group of people, really focused. We're an all volunteer organization. The board of directors and the leadership team is all volunteer. We want every single dollar that comes into the CHF to go back to the players and create the best experience for the players. And we're at a stage of our growth and trajectory right now where it was time to put an extended structure in place. When we crafted the construct of the CHF and in the bylaws, we always had an idea that we wanted to grow and scale. So we built the CHF under the guise of that particular aspiration. And, now that we're at that tipping point of going from sort of phase 1 to phase 2, it's a great opportunity to bring someone in like Scott to be our first ever executive director. Scott has a tremendous background. I won't steal his thunder of what he's done in the world of collegiate ice hockey, from player all the way through coaching, administration, and board member of the ACHA. But we've been talking with Scott for a number of years, and this is just the opportune time where the perfect storm came together of where we are in our growth, where we are in our desire to take it to the next level, Scott's availability, and his desire to help us get to that next level. And the combination of all three is a great time for the conversations that we started to have with Scott a number of weeks ago. We've been chatting for years and trying to figure out what would be the right time, and this is the absolute perfect time. And Scott brings a level of passion, knowledge, but also the know-how within the hockey ecosystem, and that's a big part of this. Hockey's a very small world. When you pull together the on ice, the off ice, the sponsorship, the individual relationships in the hockey world, it's very small. And Scott is right at the intersection of all of that. And I think that's a great opportunity for us as an organization to bring somebody on of his caliber, who believes in what we're doing, who believes in helping us to take it to the next level, and most importantly, absolutely lives our mantra of players first. And that's really, really important here. And everything that we do is about creating those sets of experience, whether that is enabling the conferences who do an absolutely great job of the day-to-day of running the programs and putting on a great show within their geographic constructs. And then what we're trying to do with the regional showcases and the Fed Cup, and Scott's going to talk to you about some of the ideas and plans that we have for expansion of experiences. But I think it would be great to have Scott talk about his background, his vision for the CHF. My role as chairman of the board, and the board is for us to think about what's next. And Scott's role is working with the commissioners, the conference presidents, and the teams to help put on the best experience. And the combination of the two of helping us to consider what's next will create a really great experience for today. So, I'll turn it back to you. And we couldn't be any happier to have Scott on board. And Scott, thanks again for joining us.
No problem. Excited to be here.
So, like you heard from the chairman, Mark Perowitz, welcome the executive director of the CHF, Scott Solomon, onto the podcast as well to the CHF. So, right off the bat, what brought you to the CHF, Scott?
I think, as Mark talked about, it was the right time, the right structure. I think the CHF is still in its infancy stages. I think we are still on the ground floor, and we get to build it the way we want to build it. So it was the right time to step in. As Mark said, the proof of concept is here. There's almost 140 member institutions that can benefit from the services. You're talking about almost 3,000 players that we could impact on a day-to-day basis. So it was the right time in my life, and it was the right time for the CHF. I'm excited about what they've already done, but I'm obviously more excited about what's to come.
So Mark mentioned a little bit, but didn't get into it because we'll let you take the floor on that one. Just speak to your business and hockey experience that led you to this point.
Well, sure. I mean, I think the player first mentality is something that I've talked about from the very beginning because I was a player first. I played for the University of Albany when I was in college quite some time ago. So I was a player. But more importantly than playing, I was the team president. So I knew I lived the life that these student athletes are experiencing. Going to school, getting an education, maybe working full time, and just want to play the game they grew up playing and loving. But now they're saddled with budgets, transportation requests, hiring a coach. I had to fire a coach. I mean, it's an odd dynamic for a 19, 20, 21-year-old. So building an infrastructure to support the student athletes, the team presidents, non-varsity hockey has come a very long way since I played, and we can take it to the next level. But these are top-flight athletes. I mean, they really are. But they're saddled with more and more responsibilities, both on and off the ice. So, again, I was a player, a coach. I ran a conference for a while. I actually was running the ranking period. Back in the day, there weren't computer rankings with our partner, my hockey rankings. People were doing it on a spreadsheet. So the ranking coordinator, other coaches chiming in, I had to coordinate that. And then And then, yes, I actually was the vice president of D3 and a board member for a decade, with the ACHA. Tremendous experience, all throughout my ranks in the non-varsity world. Took a step away, have 3 kids under the age of 15, so that'll keep you busy and hurt the golf handicap, certainly. But with that being said, the kids are getting older, they have their activities, and the time is right for me to step back in. And I miss the hockey world. So again, this was the perfect opportunity to come back and impact the CHF, the tremendous member conferences, and of course the players.
So you mentioned, like, at 19, 20 years old, you had the duties of firing a coach because you were president of the team. So what knowledge and skills over your life in hockey and business can you apply to now your new role as the executive director of the CHF?
Oh, well, that's simple. This is the people business. I mean, the world is about people and relationships. I've talked to every one of the conference administrators, the rest of my executive team, even before taking this role, doing my due diligence. As the CHF was doing their due diligence on me, I was doing my due diligence on them. Are people in the boat? Are we rowing together, or are there people who are drilling holes in the boat? I really want to grow with the right team, because almost as important as what we're doing in life, it's who you get to do it with. So there's a really impressive team here that I'm excited to be a part of. I think everyone's in the boat. They may not agree with every twist and turn, but they certainly agree with maximizing our players' experience. As Mark said, this is the top level of hockey that these guys are going to play. Let's give them our best as they're giving us theirs each and every weekend. Well, actually, there are some weekday games nowadays. That wasn't always the case. But regardless, each and every week, these guys are going out banging heads. They're giving their best. They should get ours. So again, relationships, communication, all parts of my day-to-day in the banking world, again, but more importantly, in the hockey world, there's some good people here that I'm excited to work with and keep building those relationships.
So you mentioned relationships and working with the right people. So now I'm going to throw it over to Mark. Mark, what is something that now you're going to be working alongside Scott that you look forward to being alongside him in the CHF?
I think a couple of things. One is the vision of where we could take the CHF, right? We started it to get it off the ground and prove that, there was an alternative to the existing construct that was in place. We've got an absolutely great partner in AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union. Many people don't know that the AAU was the governing body for ice hockey in the United States up until the 1950s. When A-House, precursor to USA Hockey, took it over. But AAU has been a phenomenal partner. I think that's one part that I'm looking forward to working with Scott on, and how can they become an even better partner to help us with the showcases, the national championships, the recruiting events, leveraging what their knowledge in the amateur athletic world and in governing over 50 sports in the United States, almost 1 million members in their program. I think another one is the longer term vision of where we want to go. What kind of experiences do we want to offer the players? I know Scott's going to talk a little bit about that. I think the third thing is the sponsorships. I've got a personal goal in the next 5 years is to get enough sponsorship money in here to where we don't have to charge the players for playing for the CHF. Playing for their own teams in the conferences, that's another hurdle to get over in terms of expense. But for us as a national governing body and all of the things that we want to do, I'd love to get a number of very high profile sponsors in here that will help offset the cost, because for some of these students, depending upon where they are in their programs, they're paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year to go to school, and upwards of another $5,000, $6,000 to play hockey. So, I'd love to be able to offset some of that cost. We announced a scholarship program last year. We're going to continue to do some fundraising to help that. We've got some fantastic partners in there with Game Sheet and our Sports and Verbero. We just are in the process of signing a multi-year deal with Verbero, and as part of that, they'll have an opportunity to put up team stores for the teams to sell replica jerseys and things of that nature as fundraisers. Travel costs are huge, right? So the more that we can offer our teams as a way of offsetting costs and enable them to do more, I think that's Scott. That's a lot of what I'm hoping Scott can help us with.
So you mentioned a lot there, sponsorship, and I'll let Scott take this one here. He's got the shirt on. So Scott, I'll let you do the honors about announcing one of our new sponsors here at the CHF.
Again, under the theme of, and this is just an old shirt. I'm not sure anyone really got one of these lying around, but that's an old shirt from back in the day. Maybe we can do like a raffle prize. If someone's got a shirt from Howie's older than that one, I can find you a roll of white and a roll of clear and fire it off in the mail to you or something. But Max Siblinga, who is going to be on the podcast in a bit with you, Jordan. Again, I'll call him a friend. He's another tremendous non-varsity hockey story, starting Howie's hockey. So when I took the role, I reached out to friends and relationships, and I just let them know what was going on. I don't want friends to hear through the grapevine type of deal. Wanted to reach out, and Max is one of those calls, and he's like, got to get involved. So we do have a very nice relationship with Howie's. They're going to do our Player of the Month awards. So a little bit of a revamped Player of the Month. Each conference will go ahead and nominate their Player of the Month. Howie's will send them off a care package. The Player of the Month will then hop on with you, Jordan. They'll be interviewed. They'll talk about their highlights of the month, their honor, and just talk about their experience in the CHF. So Howie's is going to sponsor the Player of the Month, nominated by each member conference. So there'll be 6 players of the month each month, going through November, December, January, and February, heading into the Fed Cup. And again, that's going to be sponsored by Howie's. They've done a nice job for us, and they're obviously a tremendous supporter of the non-varsity hockey in the country, because Max, the founder, was a standout forward for Calvin University back in the day.
So you mentioned a lot about the players there, and then it's a big focus within this Collegiate Hockey Federation is the players. So what are your goals as executive director to impact the player experience within the federation?
Yeah, a phrase that I've used throughout not only just hockey, but even with my children and their youth sports is, you want to maximize the player experience. If it's no longer fun, then why are we doing it? I mean, it's the whole thing. Yes, there's friendships, bonds, health, wellness, fitness, all things that come with youth sports. Good time management skills. You got to study, you got to go to work, you got to play. So there's a lot of positive to youth sports in general. But certainly bringing that mantra here to the CHF, maximizing the player experience. How do we add to what is already a great time, both on and off the ice? Some items that I've been instrumental with back in the day that I can certainly help bring here, and I want to bring here is, some of the interconference work. There's some tremendous interconference play. The game's expensive. I mean, it's an expensive game. Whether you're hopping a coach bus or even driving your own cars in some cases, it's going to cost you a few grand in gas tolls or the bus rental, or you're hosting. Now you got a $2,000 ice bill and referees and everything else, EMTs on site. It's an expensive game. So we want to encourage, play the local team, enjoy it. Again, the games are the reward for the hard work and practice. So, play as many games as you want. However, the travel, the hotel stay, the boys on the road, that's a thing. That's certainly a thing. So can we encourage, with the CHF's help, the interconference play? I know the Upstate New York League is going to be hosting some guys from the Empire, up in Elmira. There's always a tremendous tournament that they run down in Ashton with the DVCHC, has run that for years. I think that takes place right before Thanksgiving. The tournament in Savannah that Sarge Day has been heavy-handed in being a part of. They draw like nobody down for a tournament like that. So how do we encourage, how do we support, how do we do more of that from the CHF perspective? Because those are just tremendous experience beyond the Fed Cup. Look, there's one champion. That's how champions work, right? So there's one champion. That tournament is an experience in and of itself. We're going to add, to that I think this federation is at a critical spot as far as mass goes. You're going to see some updates here with a tiered system, with multiple divisions, always giving every member institution a spot to play. That'll be our case forever. But can we create more parity? Can we create a better experience? Can we maximize those games? I started by saying it's expensive. You want the most out of those experiences. Nobody wants to win 10-0. No one wants to lose 10-0. We want to get as much parity and maximizing each and every game as possible because, like I said, they're expensive to play at any level for that matter. So, again, more interconference support, more parity with a tiered system. We're going to bring a second tier into the Fed Cup this year. We're going to expand that. We're not taking away anything from our 32-team tournament, auto bids, everything else. We're just going to add. So we're going to leave a lot of that as is, as promised. We're going to add another tier to that tournament this year. I think that'll be a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of people that we get to impact and players and families that get a great experience with that. Next year's our 5th anniversary. It doesn't feel like that because of the pandemic, but it is, but it is. So you're going to see a bit of a rebrand next year from us. It'll be my first official full year. I know I started early this year, but my first official full year, the 5th year of the Fed. So that's going to be exciting because we're going to bring things like the All-Star Challenge, a Ryder Cup type conference versus conference showdown. Points for winning the period, differential. There's a lot of pride in playing for your conference. It'll also be the best product that the CHF has to put on the ice. The Fed Cup's a great product. And last year, Binghamton Bapton's a tremendous, overtime games in the semis, tremendous. But conference all-star teams, those are 4 first lines. I mean, that is high level of hockey that we want to showcase. So probably too late this year for budgets and travel and all of that. And I don't want to throw something together that won't be commensurate with what the product we want out there is. But bringing the All-Star Challenge together, working with our conference administrators to pull off the best product that we have. That's something we'll bring to the table next year. So enhancements by growing our Fed Cup, creating parity with a tiered system, maximizing interconference games, looking at an all-star challenge, perhaps a select team, which I did the first one for D3, growing, traveling. Look, you talk about maximizing the player experience. Going overseas to play for a week and seeing things that you may never see outside of a trip like this, there's no more way to enhance our players' lives than providing something like that. So plenty more to come. I've had the job for an hour and a half, so everyone's got to be a little bit patient. But at the same token, we've already got some great strides planned, and we have the team to implement it, and that's what I'm most excited about.
Something you mentioned there is the tiers, and you mentioned how you're not going to fully affect you're not really going to change the Fed Cup, but you're going to add to that. Just speak to in specifics what is the plans to add to this Fed Cup, and then a new tiers adding in as well.
Sure. I mean, again, 32 teams is a lot, but John LaRochester, who's a longtime friend and director of hockey operations, put on, a tremendous show last year. Millions of volunteers, certainly guys in the DVCHC, because that's in their backyard, were instrumental in pulling that together. So we're going to do it again. We're going to do it bigger. We're going to do it, a touch better and provide an experience. I'm very conscious here the season's already kicked off. So I'm very conscientious of the fact that I do not want to affect the product on the ice in any way, shape, or form. I only want to add to, I've come in, not at the last hour because it's still October, but we've already kicked off. We've already got a lot going on, a lot of positives. So I don't want to affect anything right now that could possibly distract from the product on the ice. So we've already promised our member teams auto bids, tournaments. They've already got their conference playoff structures. So we can't. And I have no interest in changing any of that. It works. So why deviate from it? However, many of our member institutions have a D3 program. They want some time in the sun. They're still banging heads every week, so why not? So we're going to bring a second tier to the Fed Cup. We're checking with our host, our very gracious host, Iceline, to see about availability for ice. make sure we have referees. We got a referee shortage in this country, not just here in the CHF. Looking to, work with our referee coordinators about, solving that problem long term. But with that being said, can the logistics work to add 4 or 8 new teams in this Tier 2 tournament to the Fed Cup this year? This is all came out of our Board of Governors meeting. Our Board of Governors is an organization that we have inside their chairman, John Marquez from the Upstate New York Collegiate Hockey League. He's their chair. He hosted a meeting earlier this week, Ollie. This is pretty new news. This is what our Board of Governors, which represents all of our member conference, wanted to see happen. So again, not making any promises because I don't want to say anything that I can't deliver on. I'd much rather under promise and over deliver than the opposite. So anybody who's looking for a business lesson, that's a good one. So I'll under promise and over deliver if I can. We're working the logistics out. But if we can bring 4, that's 80 more kids. If we can bring in 8, that's 150, 160 more players that get to experience our biggest show.
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff there from Scott. A lot of new things being added, like a player all-star game going overseas, showcases, such as the new potential division alignment that you said you don't want to go too much involved because season's already underway, but still potentially want to dabble in it and affect the Fed Cup and adding that second tier, right?
Oh, absolutely. Again, you got to be conscious. I mean, everyone made their schedules. Budgets are done. Travel plans are made. So everything's got to stay the course. Mm-hmm. I've told the Board of Governors, I've told my executive team, it's only enhancements. Can't change anything else. We can only enhance. Anything that's going to take away from the season that's already underway is a non-starter for me, at least. So at this point, we're looking to enhance where we can. Again, maximizing the player experience. And I have no patience. I'm from Long Island. I have no patience, just like you, Jordan. So I want it done yesterday. I'm a run before you walk type of guy. However, you got to be prudent as you grow. You want sustained growth. You don't want to be a house of cards that comes collapsing down. So we'll build the infrastructure. We'll check the logistics. And I don't want to wait till next year. If I can impact and maximize the guy's time now, I'm going to do it. I just got to be prudent in my path.
So now I'm going to go.
I think, Jordan, the other thing. Yeah, sorry. So the other thing too is just to add on to what Scott said is we instituted the Board of Governors for that reason, right? The members needed to have a voice. This is not just the Board of Directors or executive leadership coming up with stuff in a back room and pronouncing this is what we're going to do. The Board of Governors was constructed and put in place to where there are 2 representatives from each conference that get together periodically. I think it's on a monthly basis, and it's their opportunity to come together and discuss what's important to the membership, and then based upon either things they want to share with executive leadership, informational, hey, how things are going, or vice versa, or there are things like this multiple division system. Can you do this at the next Fed Cup? Where they make a request of leadership and leadership evaluates the efficacy of it. Do we have the budget for it? Can we do it? What are the political ramifications, things of that nature? But the Board of Governors is an incredibly important part of what we're doing today and going forward, because that's the bridge between, a small number of people who are, focusing on the day-to-day of the CHF and the membership. The membership needs to have a voice, and the Board of Governors was put in place, and Scott, I think, from what we've seen so far, it's really acting as a great mechanism of helping us to better understand what the needs of the members are and how we can help expand upon that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Mark, I was going to go to you, but now I'll ask you, in addition of Scott and all these new things that are being proposed and then put into place, where's your mindset now as the chairman of the league?
Well, I mean, first off, hats off to the executive team, right? That has gotten us this far, right? By no means is Scott coming in and going to shine a whole new light on what we're doing. The founding fathers, aside from me, of the CHF, right? John LaRochester, who's the director of hockey ops, Jay Peacock, who's our commissioner, John Rink, who's our chief administrative officer, and Jay Turcott, one of the deputy commissioners, have done an absolutely amazing job, not only putting the elements of the CHF in place, but getting it off the ground and running it and evolving it over these last 4 years. There's no way that we could have gotten to where we are today without them, as well as all of the conference commissioners and presidents who, frankly, took a leap of faith, right? When we decided to start the CHF and 65 teams came over the first year, and we doubled in size the second year, and that was even in COVID where we didn't have a season. So there's been a tremendous amount of effort and passion put in by a small number of people to make this happen. And, having Scott come on board is just helping us to take it to another level. So, with Scott's focus and attention, working with the executive leadership on where we are and sort of Horizon 1, right? My focus is really going to be Horizons 2 and 3. What's next for us? How can we grow and expand? How can I help Scott, realize some of the visions that he has? How can we bring in sponsors? How can we create long-lasting relationships and memories for the players? And this is about life lessons. At the end of the day, I had the opportunity. I played NCAA. I grew up coaching for a long time, and I had the really good fortune of coaching my son for a long period of time. And it just creates a bond. It creates a set of life lessons. A number of years ago, out of the blue, I get a text from him. He had just read an article by a journalist in the Toronto Globe and Mail about his experience. He was not a hockey dad. He never played, but he experienced the journey of going on all the road trips with his son, and his son was coming to the end of his sort of youth and junior experience and going away. And it was the heartfelt recollection of all of the time spent and everything like that. And, he texted the link to the article to me with one, a singular caption was, "I miss those days," right? That's what this is about. I immediately sent it to my dad. He called and he was crying, and, because he did the same thing with me. That's what we want to have and continue on for the kids, right? And the players, while they still can, until they get out into the beer leagues post-college.
Yeah, that's always the end game, the summer league, fall league, the beer leagues. When I was playing, after the college season, everyone would go to the back from college division in the men's league in the summer, and that would kind of be like our warm up for the season. So there's always that good avenue after the season ends to stay healthy. Before I wrap it up, Mark had some words there. Scott, I'll leave it to you. Anything you want to say before we tail off for the day?
Really, no. This is the beginning of something, not the end of something, obviously. So again, I started by saying I know not only my tenure, but the CHF in general is in the infancy stages. I think clearly the best is yet to come. The work that everyone's done, all the people that Mark named to get here is what got me excited about coming on board. It's their work, their effort, what they've built. We have some truly sustainable mass now that we can do a lot with. And it's that level of experience that we want to provide. The Board of Governors, they're in the rink each and every weekend. They're the ones coaching. They're the ones hearing it. They're the tremendous voice. So we need that. I enjoy watching the podcast, Jordan. I do. I mean, I admitted to you privately that before I even spoke to some of these conference administrators that I didn't know. I know some of the guys from back in the day, and some of the names haven't changed, but there's a lot of new faces that I didn't know. So to learn their personality, I watched the old podcasts. Let me see what I'm getting into here. Or, what are they? Well, what's that?
Happy I could help, even though.
Yeah, absolutely. Unbeknownst to you, I use it as a resource. But they're great. Kyle Nell down in College Hockey South, he's part of the future. Younger guy played here, did it. I watched his interview before I called him. All right, what's he all about? That was a good thing. He let you go pretty easy on not knowing the difference between the University of Tampa and the University of Tennessee, as he called it UT.
Well, UT is so common, especially in the CHF. You think UT, you think Tampa. That was the first thing on my head.
The rest of the world outside of Tampa, who's very good, and my parents live down there, so I can't say anything too bad. But the rest of the world, I think, especially Kyle, views UT as Tennessee. But regardless, he let you go off pretty easy with that one.
I'll take it.
So I saw that was kind of him. But with that being said, it's all of these things that happen not on the ice. It's all the things that happen off the ice, not just inside the glass, which is a great product. It's what we're building around our product that excites me. So again, I wish all the players, all the teams, all the conferences the best of luck each and every weekend. Enjoy it. I mean, this is the best for maybe 5 years of your life, but go ahead, learn something, get ready for the real world, but don't let this rush by. This is a pretty exciting time, and you need to enjoy it. After this, there's hockey. It's not the same. And life gets more challenging. So enjoy these times. With that said, I'm just excited to get working. And, again, with this team and with this federation, there's a lot of good to come.
Yeah, so now you're going to have all of the University of Tampa team not liking me anymore because I didn't know that UT was Tennessee. So I'm going to have a bullseye on my head now. I think I had a kid from did I have a kid on Tennessee or on the earlier podcast? I think I did. Went swell, but I don't know now. Now we might have some beef, me, Tennessee, and myself. But again, I would like to thank the chairman of the CHF, Mark Perowitz, the brand new executive director of the CHF, Scott Solomon. Thanks for coming on the podcast. A lot of good stuff for all you players out there. And what Scott said is true. Cherish it. I remember when I played and my first year in, my coach, Joe Mazey, told me the same thing. Cherish this. Don't take it for granted. Before you know it, you're going to be graduating. And then now I was sitting there like, what are we talking about? I'm worried about getting up for class Friday morning, not like graduating. And before you know it, it hits you. It comes quick. So take advantage of all the opportunities given to you. Don't take it for granted. Scott is 100% right with that. But again, Mark, Scott, my name is Jordan DeLuciano for the CHF Overtime Podcast. Thank you for watching, and we will see you all next week.